Hello? Right. Good. Sorry, that's very loud. Thank you so much and well done for everyone for making it this far, final panel of the day. Before we start, I'm going to ask my fellow panelists to do a very quick, 30-second intro, and then we'll get into things as well. So we'll start at the end.
Right. Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's usually quite hard to be the last panel, but I hope that we'll keep the room engaged. So I'm Elias Omondi. I work for FSD Africa. I lead innovation for resilience. And basically what we do as an organization, we make finance work for Africa's future in terms of really addressing the challenges that do impact this particular continent in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gbenro?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gbenro Dara. I'm the CEO of Octamile. We're simplifying access to insurance for the African continent. Essentially, at the heart of our mission is to remove frictions in the insurance process. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Jihan Abass. I'm the CEO of Lami. Lami is an Insurtech based out of Kenya. Our objective is really to democratize access to insurance products. So we spent the last few years building out a platform to simplify the process of distribution of insurance across Africa.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And my name is Jessica Hope, and I run Wimbart, a PR agency. We specialize in African tech and business and work with Insurtech companies across the continent as well. So before we get started, I just want to do a quick hands up. Who here in the room has an insurance product? Okay, so my research showed that apparently Africa only has about 3% penetration when it comes to insurance, and if you take South Africa out from that, it's much, much lower as well. So obviously there's an opportunity, the market is going to grow, but there's still, I think, probably the education requirement and you coming in at the right cost space. I think, we've all heard, I think every single panel has started with the fact that 2023, that we saw a significant downturn in terms of investment from VCs, et cetera, as well. So we know it's a difficult market, but I think there was one big Insurtech win last year. I think Naked secured $17 million. So there is money in the system. And I'm guessing that, in terms of new opportunities and growth. We've got, generative AI is going to help, I guess, streamline processes as well. And today, I think it would be great to hear your experiences about how you scale, some of the problems and challenges that you see as well. But let's kick off with, I guess, like a 2-minute summary of how was the African Insurtech space for you last year? Jihan, let's start with you.
I would say that luckily we were not fundraising, so we didn't have to experience that part of it. However, I would say that, insurance across Africa is already a difficult sell, generally speaking. I think it's a product that people don't really understand, or you have to really convince somebody to be able to see the value in purchasing an insurance policy for risk that, of something going wrong in the future. So I would say that I think we definitely saw a drop in terms of sales, just generally speaking. I think it's, of course, one of the first things somebody will say I need to cut out when they're cutting costs, unfortunately. But I think for us, we were really trying to see how we can ensure that the process is still streamlined, it's as easy as possible. And also, I think the key thing that our platform allows us to bring forward is really that flexibility, which in difficult times, I think is really important because people can pick and choose whatever they want to add into their policy. So it makes it, it makes it work for them as opposed to them having to commit to something that, may be too expensive for them.
Got it. Gbenro, 2023?
Yeah, I think just like every other sector, insurance wasn't immune. 2023 was kind of like a rocky year. And if you zoom in country specific, when you bring in challenges like currency devaluation, further complicates the matter. But I think we still saw a lot of growth in the insurance industry general. So if you look at the premium generated in the market across both Kenya, Nigeria, and key markets, there was still some level of growth. So we're still seeing the increased demand because, like the stat says it, less than 3% have any form of insurance. So it's really still a very, very, very virgin opportunity in Africa. And there are a lot of people who haven't even experienced insurance at all. So I think just being able to create a new market, focusing on like new niches has been something that we've done and sort of helped us to consistently find growth.
Got it. Elias?
Yeah, so I think there was a bit of a challenge, particularly within the insurance sector. If you look at, in terms of the premiums, there was a little bit of not real growth, but more of just the growth that would be taken out by the inflation. So the challenges are there within the insurance sector. There's need to do a lot of innovation. There is need to reach to the customers better. And I think, if you talk about risk within the insurance sector, very difficult to understand, because if you're buying a policy now and somebody tells you that, this will translate into a payment in the future, customers don't relate to that really, really fast. And I think within the Insurtech field, then this is where we can be able to experience growth, because the market has kind of really stagnated, and customers really need to have a high touch kind of a product that they can feel and relate to.
So sticking with that, you said that the market has stagnated, and we know, for various reasons. But the market, is still only 3% penetration. So I guess let's have a look at where growth might come from, how I guess, we can move up to like maybe 10% penetration and what that would look like in terms of financials. And then, let's think also about like how can Insurtech bridge the insurance gap just generally in Africa, especially maybe with unbanked, underbanked and underserved communities. Elias, let's carry on with you.
Yeah, it's a reality. In terms of the gross premium growth, particularly the GDP, insurance only contributes 3% in Africa. In fact, if you go to the real numbers, it's lower than 3%. And in the real, and also if you look at that, insurance in Africa, Africa is least protected. That basically means that we really need insurance to support the communities and also the people and the businesses. And that basically means that there is need for us to think about what are the challenges that are really impacting this particular sector. And the challenges are there. One, people do not really understand insurance. And we really need to look at ways in which they can quickly understand these particular products. The second thing is accessibility. We really need to make these particular products accessible. Another thing is basically issues around regulations, which kind of also impacts that particular sector in a big way. So if we kind of bring all these factors together, these particular challenges, then you can be able to see that Insurtech will play a very critical role in unlocking that and enabling access to these particular solutions, because Insurtechs are quite more agile. They can quickly go and reach the underserved and the unbanked communities through very innovative, inclusive insurance solutions. And that's why we really need to think about how then do we leverage the power of technology in terms of providing solutions that really needs to close that particular protection gap. We really need to think about how then do we enable regulations, more creating an enabling environment through sandboxes whereby innovators, Insurtechs can bring solutions that can be tested on the market. So I think those are some of the key components that will enable us to provide access to insurance solutions. We'll be able to come up with inclusive, innovative solutions that customers can relate to and be able to understand.
Okay. And then, so maybe, Gbenro, you might want to take us through, like, what's a conversation? Jihan mentioned the education in terms of what insurance is and why people need it as well. Maybe you could just, like, walk us through, like, a conversation that you might have with someone who has not been exposed to an insurance product before.
That's usually a very difficult conversation, because these particular persons have ways in which they address their risks, particularly they are informal. And you are trying to formalize that particular setup. And the key conversations would be, how can we improve the way you capture different aspects of risk that do impact your livelihood? So in terms of how maybe insurance companies interact with customers is not the best, because you try and bring them to the formal sector, yet they have ways and mechanisms of addressing the risks. And I believe the way technology and Insurtechs are looking at these particular challenges is basically getting to their need point and trying to really address the active pain. Most of the time we look at the latent pain, what maybe a customer's kind of gone ahead with, and he kind of understand his pain, but we really need to understand how then do we relate to the active pain. I think that's the key component that we really need to bring into the game. So we have to go to their setup and see how then we can enable them to address their needs, rather than trying to bring them to the formal sector, yet they're highly informalized, and that's the way that they've been dealing with their risks and their livelihoods.
And everyone else, does that kind of conversation, that approach, does that ring true?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, he mentioned something about risk. I think at the core of insurance is really risk mitigation, risk protection. And if you help people understand the risks that they are faced with, I think it's almost an eye-opener when you have those conversations from things that they can relate with. A farmer who understands that the difference between 12 bags and 14 bags, it's not about insurance, it's about his earning, it's about the risk he's exposed to. So you're helping him solve a pertinent issue in his business, in his life. I think it's always coming from that point of view. But also messaging has also been something that the traditional insurers have not been, maybe not done very well at, because insurance can be quite cumbersome with the jargons that come along with it, right? So if you come talking to a farmer about premiums and excess and all that, he doesn't understand you. But if you talk to him like in the language that he does, he will get it. And also being able to tailor the products to suit the needs of this guy, I think it's very, very important.
Yeah. Jihan, anything to add?
Yeah, I think there's also an aspect of trust. I think the key thing of who is selling this insurance policy to that person. I think the problem has been that sometimes it's very unstructured. It's very mass market approach. But sometimes I think it's really important to understand that the person selling those people the insurance product is also a key factor to whether or not they buy the policy. To be able to build that trust, or even use a channel where they already have that trust built.
Mm-hmm. So on that subject then, we've heard a lot about embedded insurance, embedded finance. We see a lot of insurtechs, I guess, trying to almost build like white label products and collaborate with other recognizable brands. What's easier, B2B or B2B2C?
We've definitely done both. So we've done B2B and we do B2B, and we've also done B2B2C. I think it's B2B2C. The interesting thing about it is that there's often a lot of reliance on the third-party platform that you might be working with to be able to successfully market your products. So I think there's a bit of difficulty there in the sense that, how much do they understand whatever you're offering, and are they able to convince their customers to purchase your product? So there has to be a lot of alignment between those platforms and you, to make sure that they're gaining something from pushing your products through those channels. So we've had partnerships with banks, we've had partnerships with other digital platforms, and I think that has been always the key learning, is that you need to make sure that you're fully aligned to ensure that your products are successfully sold, because everybody's gaining from that distribution channel network.
Okay, and I guess this question is to the whole panel, but what do you look for in a partner when it comes to building insurance products? And also, what do you think they're looking at from you? What are the questions they're asking you? How do they scrutinize you? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Partners are looking for various things. And in any industry anyway, it's really around finding alignments into interests around our goals. So on the insurance provider side, so we partner a lot with the insurance providers who use our software to power their own back-end operations and automate a lot of their processes. Speaking to a lot of insurers, they have varying needs. And it's about really being able to tailor our own product to suit their specific stage and their specific needs. So it's really an ability to adapt to their own model. But one thing that we've also seen generally, speaking with the insurers, is that they've always seen kind of like a technical gap from the insurance side, and people building technology products. So we always sort of try to emphasize the design and the understanding of insurance principles in what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of partnerships, basically we run an ecosystem, and what we've seen is that we try to place the customer at the center, and that basically becomes a very critical component in enabling that particular partnership, because most of the time, if you look at how an insurance company, an Insurtech, is kind of leveraging on the partnerships, they tend to forget the customer out of the equation. And if if these particular partnerships are kind of built around a consumer or around the customer that is going to enjoy or basically benefit out of this particular product, they tend to last, because you tend to kind of grow and enable particular partnerships to kind of engage and enable you to grow the business, which basically means that the insurance company grows their bottom line at the end of the day. Then also, as you are providing the service to that particular insurance company, then you end up benefiting in terms of growing your revenue. So I think the way we've kind of structured the ecosystem at the core is basically looking at what is the customer value and what is the customer experience that this particular partnership is going to generate.
So you mentioned the technical side of things. So let's think about, micro insurance and like providing technology through just everything from, I guess, through SMS, through mobile phone, then to like all the way through to AI and what generative AI is doing for the industry as well. Like that's quite a big gap. How are you, I guess, navigating that and building, I guess, specific products for specific target audiences, different groups, and I guess people with different incomes as well?
Yeah. So, largely today, insurance is very, very traditional and manual, right? So first of all, even getting them to, be able to clean up that process, even automate that, I think that's a huge difference in the life of the insurers today. Being able to augment that with advanced analytics as well, with AI, it definitely unlocks a whole new opportunities for them. But I would say that that's really not maybe the most pertinent issue for the insurance providers, a lot of them that we speak to on the continent. They're really looking at how to take their existing products even further, or rather sort of tailor or tweak their existing products to make sure that it meets the needs of those people. I don't think that AI alone will solve that, but it's really understanding the customer's needs as well. Yeah.
But what is AI solving for then in the Insurtech market at the moment?
Yeah, so I think AI really does a lot of things. First of all, one example is on the inspection side. A lot of money is spent doing physical inspections on vehicles, on houses. AI helps a lot to assess damage and, of course, smoothing the process of claims payout, claims assessment. We have a solution which automates claims, pays out claims in less than 5 minutes, moving from a world of where the claims backlog of 30 days. So it's a huge world of difference for them.
And Jihan, how are you using AI at Lami?
At the moment, actually, we're not using AI.
Okay.
I think for us, the key thing, I would say for the insurance space, one of the things that I've seen in the last few years is that we're trying to fit in all these new technologies, but we're not looking at the current market, right? The market has certain problems, which is distribution needs to be fixed because there's a very low penetration. There's also the fact that a lot of people are not that sophisticated in terms of the way they access these products. So I think it's what we try to do is, empower maybe distribution channels to ensure that the products are actually reaching these people first. I think there are a lot of use cases, as Gbenro mentioned, is around claims processing. So I think there's definitely interesting uses there. Also around pay as you drive kind of like models for car insurance and all that. But I think right now what we need really is, how do you digitize existing markets? Whether that's, for example, in Kenya, SME products are not digitized. Yeah. All SME product sales are manual. So there's already a big opportunity when you're looking at the existing market. How can you actually bring this market from offline to online? And then in that process, helping insurance companies also legitimize some of these sales that are coming through to them before adding additional layers of technology.
Okay. So I guess AI is something down the line for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But maybe just wanted to add, if you look at the insurance setup in Africa, you can basically divide it into 3 components. There's a front office, which basically means that there is where you see the distribution. Then there's a middle office, which basically requires AI. And that's where, if you look at the way the incumbent insurance company is operating, there's a lot of work that really needs to be done in that particular area in terms of claims processing, in terms of claims identification, and also in terms of basically paying out all those particular claims. So I believe that that's a sector that will be highly impacted by the AI. We might not see a lot of AI being applied on the customer-facing side, but at the back office to reduce the cost and to enable efficiency and enabling the business models. We've already seen a couple of companies already doing what we call robotic processing in terms of how that they can enable the claims process to be a bit faster, because this is something that has really hindered the growth of the insurance sector. If claims take, say, 90 days to be paid, and an AI can really help you to get that particular claim paid in 24 hours, then that will enable us increase the penetration that we're talking about. So I believe that from the inclusive insurance side that you mentioned, whereby we really need to look at what customers can easily relate to, which can be use of USSD, simple applications such as use of mobile phones and use of mobile, some apps that already companies have already generated, to that particular point whereby now we bring more complex data analytics and data processing that will enable us to reduce the cost that current customers are really paying for in the middle office.
Interesting. So then you've talked about sort of more traditional insurance companies as well. What would your advice be to them for them to adopt AI now, I'm guessing, or do they acquire an Insurtech maybe to bring that sort of innovation in the tech side of things? How's insurance going to innovate?
Yeah, so there are two elements that the insurance sector can leverage on. One is through partnerships, and I believe that is the quickest way to enable them to grow, because Insurtechs are very agile. They can, it's the same thing that we say that these guys can walk while chewing, yet an insurance company cannot walk while chewing, because they have to stick into one thing. So I believe that through innovative solutions that the Insurtechs are currently rolling out, then they can enable them to grow faster in terms of reaching to those particular customers that they couldn't reach before. The second thing is cost that they are currently experiencing. In terms of cost reduction, Insurtechs will enable them to reduce the cost that they are currently experiencing, basically in reaching out to this particular customer. So I believe one area is through clear partnerships with Insurtechs to create the future of insurance in this particular continent. And the second bit is developing, the insurance companies themselves developing innovation hubs, whereby they can work with also the same time working with different types of Insurtechs within the innovation hub to develop solutions that of the problems that they are facing as an institution. So one way is a direct, clear partnership arrangement, and the second thing is whereby they can develop hubs, whereby they can host different innovators to address the problems that they are experiencing.
Okay. Gbenro, anything to add to that?
I think he said a lot on that, right? But, partnerships is really, really, I think, like you said, the quickest things. Insurers are increasingly realizing that it's not their forte, really, to be tech companies or launch tech products. They've done so in the past and got their fingers burnt. So they're increasingly warming up to partnering with Insurtech. So that's exciting.
So these partnerships, how are they structured? Take us through that journey. Is it that, you go to an insurance company, or they come to you? Do they ask you to white label products? Do they give you access to their data or their numbers? Or they come to you with the challenges and they ask you to build a separate solution? Or is there, I'm guessing there's not just a one size fits all product. Like, take us through that partnership journey.
Yeah, so I think it's first of all, it's a long sales cycle.
Okay.
It's a long.
When we say long, how long are we talking?
I mean, so we've talked to some insurers who we've known them for 2 years,
okay,
and there are conversations that we're having that still in the pipeline. So that's a long sales cycle, but I think that's also one thing that Insurtechs, who have tried in the past, were a bit impatient in understanding the DNA of the insurance providers. These are people who are struggling with their own internal processes, and you're just trying to fix that, and you're bringing a total new innovation. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be patient, first of all, right? And you mentioned about one size fits all. I think that's really spot on. Like, each insurer is at a different stage and different issues. Trying to understand what stage they are and what their priorities are, whether it's cost reduction, whether it's expanding distribution on an e-business side, or it's really on their agency side. Understanding that need, but long term, we've just sort of like engaged the industry over time, and I think a lot of these conversations then happen organically as well.
Okay, so that organic conversation, how do you influence? So you're innovators, tech, innovation, enterprise. You want to move quickly, you want to build fast, etc. How does that then translate to big, old school, traditional, often clunky, administrative heavy organizations like traditional insurers? Like, what's that sort of sell-in process? What are the conversations that are you having with the internal stakeholders?
Okay, I'll give you a specific example, right? So today, AXA in Nigeria uses our claims automation solution to automate their motor claims. This was a conversation that started from the CEO's office. We happen to know the CEO and sort of sat with them from time to time to understand what initiatives they were trying to drive. And one of them happened to align with our own product. And then we also started to see what goals they were trying to achieve. And by the time they realized that rather than building themselves, in fact, most times they're already building something, already exploring something. So it's really trying to fit your own product into their own stage and their needs. So also being able to move very fast. Mm-hmm. They know that they can move fast. So if they're partnering with an Insurtech who's also not able to move fast, that's not a great sign. Yeah. So they want to be able to see that you're able to deploy, first of all, understand their needs quickly, and be able to deploy something that meets it.
And Jihan, how have you managed to, I guess, educate stakeholders internally, even before kind of going out to the wider consumer markets?
Yeah, I think some of the things that we try to do is really, I think, speak by the numbers that we've been able to do with various kind of products that we've launched in the past. I think that really helps generally for them to build that confidence in you and your solution. I would say the problem with insurance companies generally is that they spend a lot of money around tech development. In Kenya, for example, the average amount spent by an underwriter is between $10 to $20 million for technology development, whether that's in-house or purchasing external platforms that have been built in other parts of the world where they don't really understand how products work in this market. So I think that the first thing we try to do is really, the conversations take long. We work also with a lot of banks. So even in those conversations, it's a year or more to get them to understand your product, to get to understand the value. But I think you really have to show them the costs that they're saving, the time that they're saving, and also the growth potential within these products that you may be offering for them. We had one insurance company coming to us and telling us that they reconcile 50,000 personal accident policies manually. So they have a whole team, a whole room of people who literally sit there and reconcile these policies because they're not, they didn't have the technology to digitally distribute and reconcile this specific policy. So for us, that's a clear opportunity for us to show them value because we're able to automate that completely, simplify that process, and save them, all the money that they've been spending year on year, month on month, on ensuring that this is done.
And you mentioned distribution channels earlier. You've just touched upon it again now. Who needs who the most? Do the banks need you, or do you need the banks in terms of having that distribution channel? Or is it mutually beneficial?
I think it's definitely mutually beneficial. Banks, the good thing about banks is that people trust their bank. Yeah. You go to your bank, you get your loan, you put your money there, you save your money there every month. So there's already that element of trust that has already been built. So that's the first step. The second part is that because of that, they're able to easily sell you various insurance products or even bundle insurance products with other products that they might be selling you already. So for us, I would say that the value proposition is that we're able to just streamline that completely for them. For example, the biggest bank in Kenya, they do about $30 million a year in premiums. That's a huge number, more than some insurance underwriters. So for us to be able to show them that actually, you're able to streamline this using our technology is a huge value add for them.
Yeah. And Elias, for you, what's your distribution channel? And maybe you could give some insight as well about the sort of sales cycle as well for when you're distributing through larger organizations.
Yeah, and I want just to step back a bit on how then do we enable these particular partnerships, and maybe I'll kind of step into that question. Now, one thing that we've noted is that there's always a gap between what innovators want to bring into the market and what insurance companies or other partners are looking at. And we really needed to think about how then we close that particular gap in terms of do we really need to build an ecosystem that will enable people to understand the challenges that are being experienced in the African market. So I'm happy to basically mention that Octamile and Lami have been in this particular program, whereby we bring the entire ecosystem into a table for us to understand how do we basically address the challenges that are impacting the insurance markets in Africa. So you bring the insurance companies onto the table, you bring the investors onto the table, you bring the regulator onto the table, because even sometimes you realize that the insurance companies tend to shy away from partnering because they don't know what types of regulation that particular technology might require. So they might not even start the conversation. So the power that we kind of realize that bringing the ecosystem together, enabling each and every person to understand what value each and every person is bringing onto the table was a very big, I would say, a very big shift in terms of how innovation can be addressed and be taken into the market in the near future. Now, in terms of the distribution, I usually believe that distribution will unlock a lot in Africa. But the second bit of it, which has really impacted, is the claims payment in Africa. If somebody pays his premium and his claims take 90 days, he will not even trust the element that was used to distribute that particular product. So I believe that what Insurtechs are trying to do is kind of bring a full stack solution from the distribution to the claims payment, and even to after-sale service, because most of the time, once you pay your premium, the person disappears. He will only appear when the renewal comes, maybe after 1 year. And the way Insurtechs are kind of built, they can have those touch points whereby they can provide other additional services to the customer, which basically improves the distribution to the next year. And that is what we are trying really to inculcate, whereby we have a very full stack solution that really addresses the needs that these particular customers are facing.
And you touched there on regulation as well. We haven't got long left, but we can't not talk about regulation in the insurance and the Insurtech space. Challenges, is the regulatory space open to innovation and change, or is it, I don't know, cumbersome?
You know, if you look at the previous roles of regulators before, it was all about customer protection. They didn't have anything around market development. And we've seen a lot of evolution in Africa, whereby African regulators have understood that you cannot protect nothing. So most of the time, there are no customers coming into that particular space. So they realized maybe we are protecting nobodies. So they went back into market development space, whereby they're now looking at how innovation can be used to address the protection gap that I talked about earlier. So we've seen a lot of regulators now having mechanisms of doing sensitizations within the insurance space. They are developing regulatory sandboxes and allowing insurtechs to operate within their markets. So there's a little bit of an enabling environment currently being created. We need to do a lot more. And I think maybe I just need to mention the accelerator that we run as FSD Africa. The key component around it is bringing the regulator on the table, so that the regulator can have a discussion with Octamile, can have a discussion with Lami, just to know and understand these particular innovations, because most of the time regulators shy away because they don't understand what these innovations entail. And if you bring them onto the table, they'll be able to understand the innovations, the level of risk that the innovation will bring into the market, and generates regulations that do not bar those innovations, but enable them to operate within a systemic way, and that will be able to maybe ensure that the market grows into the future.
Okay. And Gbenro, what would be a call to action if this room was full of regulators? What would you be asking them to do to make your life easier, to help stimulate growth, innovation, and opportunity, and help start pushing that 3% up as well?
Yeah, I think we really to work with the Insurtechs.
Yeah.
So the regulator has a bird's eye view of the challenges and the opportunities in the space, and sort of sit with innovators as well to see what kind of solutions can be deployed across the market, not insurance specific, but like market-wide innovation that can actually move the needle for these markets. I think we've been fortunate, of course, with relationships like with FSD Africa, part of the lab, where we're able to really be at the table with the regulators. And I think that's really an advantage in our markets.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we first launched our Lami platform, it was in late 2019, 2020. At that time, I think it was a completely different landscape. There was no sandbox. There was no sort of accelerator program by the regulator. So there's definitely been a lot of progress in trying to understand what it is that you're trying to bring forward and the value that you're trying to bring to the market. So I think that, for me, it's really about seeing how underwriters can also, how the regulator can support underwriters to implement and adopt a lot of these technologies. Because right now I feel like that's really where the gap is that, we're out here building a lot of these platforms, a lot of this technology. However, there's still a bit of a lot of the underwriters still afraid to fully implement or adopt some of these technologies at the moment.
Okay. So we've just got a few minutes left, but I think we've talked mostly about the space, we've talked about the products. Let's talk about VCs. Let's talk about money. Insurtech, probably not as sexy as fintech, but we know that there's a huge opportunity for growth and scale and theoretically returns as well, which is what we know VCs like. Like, how do you structure the conversation? How do you make Insurtech sexy for VCs?
I think the most exciting part of it is that there hasn't really been an Insurtech that has been hugely successful in Africa.
Okay.
So a lot of the investors are still trying to find that those kinds of businesses. So I think that is an advantage and a disadvantage, for us. But I would say that because of that, there's still that sort of fire to find these businesses. Of course, I think I've been hearing it all this past week is that a lot of VCs are not investing in Insurtech this year. But I think that at the end of the day, there's still a lot of opportunity to find the right model. The right business model still hasn't been fully activated and discovered across Africa.
Okay, so Gbenro, tell us, why should VCs be investing in Insurtech this year?
Look, it's a no-brainer, right? If you think of the opportunity, the insurance gap, you don't need much preaching. If you take out South Africa, it's 1% or less. 1 out of 100 have any form of insurance. 10 years from now, that's going to change significantly. Even if it doubles alone, that's a huge return potential for investors. But I think the challenge also that we see, and where we think innovators also need to sort of try to work harder at, investors also need to be educated about the insurance space, about the opportunity. Most investors in the market understand fintech better. Just like innovators as well, I would say 9 out of 10 innovators don't really get insurance as well because it's really technical. Same thing for investors as well. 9 out of 10 of them don't understand insurance. So we're actively educating them about the markets, the opportunities, and also sort of changing their assumptions and their misconceptions about the space.
And do you think it's because they're nervous about the risk and the payouts? And, as you said, it's quite technical. What are their main concerns? What are some of the questions that, a VC might ask you or an investor might ask you?
So for every VC, the question in mind is, how are you going to be $1 billion company, right? What's the size of premiums in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa today? That's where they start from. So a lot of investors say, well, okay, maybe it's an early market. Well, it's something that we maybe want to wait and see how the market progresses. But, you don't want to wait till the food is fully done before you try to be a part of it, right? So I think that's why we really need to educate them about the stage we are and the opportunities in the market.
Perfect. And then, Elias, let's finish with you. 2 or 3 things to help educate investors about Insurtech and the insurance market and why they should be cutting checks in 2024 and not putting it off.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is that the way my colleagues have said, insurance is quite complex, so there's need to really enable them to understand that particular space. Secondly, particularly in Africa, insurance presents a huge opportunity because it hasn't been really explored. We're just talking about less than 1% when you remove South Africa. In fact, 70% of the premiums of the entire continent come from South Africa. That basically means that, if we kind of bring these particular conversations and enable them to understand the impact that insurance will have in the near future, then they'll be able to really start putting their money in this particular sector. The last thing is that the risks are increasing daily. We're talking about natural catastrophes that are increasing. There's need for renewable energy. There's need for newer projects, infrastructure projects, and all those particular projects are based in Africa. So I think the key element and the key people that will be ensuring that these particular projects succeed and even addressing these risks are Insurtech. So I believe that it's a great opportunity for us to really come together and solve this particular challenge that the continent is facing.
Excellent rallying call. Thank you very much. We've spoken a lot. We've talked about product. We've talked about VCs. I think we have 1 minute for maybe one question, if there is a question from the floor. Otherwise, I think that will conclude the day. Any questions, please? Is there a mic available, please, for the lady in the blue?
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi. Abby from Kotani Pay. Thank you so much for such an informative session. And I'm very excited that all of you are embracing Web3, and that is AI in your use cases and your day-to-day operations. And as you know, when it comes to insurance, trust is a very important game when you talk about defaulters versus even trust from the customer side. And I'm wondering if there are any plans of embracing blockchain-based solutions in the insurance industry, because I've not heard you talk about blockchain and the use of smart contracts to automate such services?
Great question. I think we've all skipped blockchain for AI. That's how very 2024 of us. Who would like to take the blockchain
We've already
question?
gotten some great feedback from the market about our product. We've done small pilots with potential customers and gotten great feedback.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. So
Things, green.
yeah, so I think this is it's a very interesting technology that will need to be used, but at the moment it has already been utilized, particularly on agri space, whereby in terms of index insurance, nowadays they apply the blockchain to basically look at those indices and basically to give customer contracting. So I think that's something that has already kind of been explored in terms of the agri-tech space, but we really need to see more of adoption in terms of smart contracting within the continent, because that in a way will also enable trust to be built within the ecosystem. I did mention that once we get that full stack solution across the insurance value chain, then things such as blockchain will be things that will be too normal for institutions to use. But currently, I think it's only being applied on agri-tech space, whereby insurance companies that are providing what we call index or weather-based technology type of insurance are using those particular tools.
Anyone else doing anything exciting on blockchain or? No? Oh, wait, we're definitely at time. Please, a huge round of applause for the panel. And a round of applause for yourselves as well for making it through to the end and sticking with us. I hope you found it informative. Thanks very much to Africa Tech Summit for hosting.